What's up, guys? In the continuing efforts to bring the problem child back to life, today we will be doing the ignition switch. This, believe it or not, is what an ignition switch looks like for one of these cars. This is the actual ignition component right here, but then this wiring runs down the steering column, and then this connects to a big connector at the bottom. So there's a lot going on here. Because of the complexity of this and how often these things fail, I do recommend, if you're going to do one, to get it from a dealer or from GM Parts Direct or somewhere like that, to make sure that you're actually getting the factory part and not a cheap aftermarket part, because the cheap ones will not hold up very well. So we're going to get out to the car and get this on and see if this cures our problem. So this is not too bad of a job, but the first thing you have to do is remove the two lower panels. I've already removed the lowest one and taken the two bolts out of this one, so you just slide it forward and it should pop free. Then you're just going to need to release the connector that goes to the tire pressure monitor if you have a 97. If it's newer than this, then you're not going to have that. That's what I'm doing right here. Once that's out of the way, you can just take the panel and move it. Then you have to remove this metal panel underneath, which is going to have 4 of the 7mm screws that hold it to the plastic in the front. But then on the back side, it's going to have 4 10mm bolts that hold it to the metal framing. The 2 holes that you see in this shot are actually right below 2 of them, and then the other 2 are behind the panel, down lower on. You can see here where I'm going to get the front 2 10mm bolts. And then the backs are back here. And once again, if you look up there from the bottom, you'll see them pretty plainly. Then the metal plate will just come down and you can move it out of your way. There is a sensor connected to it right here that you'll need to unplug to be able to move it. And it's just this one plug right here that you'll have to unhook. With that out of the way, you can actually see all the wiring, but you will need to remove the plastic surround around the steering column to be able to access the switch side. That's part of what I'm doing right here. They just have some little inverted Torx bits that hold them together. Unless, like this car, yours is broken, in which case the bottom may not be held on by anything at all. Now the column tilt lever just pulls out if you need to remove that. Now, to remove the switch itself, you've got 3 small inverted Torx bits. If you're careful and you use a small 1/4-inch socket, you should be able to get to all 3 of these with the actual lock cylinder still in, which is what I did here. Once those are released, it will fall right out pretty much. Here it is laying down here. Then just follow the wiring. There may be a piece that holds it to the steering column that you have to undo. This one was actually already loose. And then follow that wiring down and you'll see a big bolt connector right here with a single bolt in the middle, which I think is an 8. It's either a 7 or an 8. So you undo this central bolt and the 3 plugs that make up this bolt connector will all come out together. Just like this. Then you'll need to separate the 2 outer pieces from the middle piece and move those over to the new ignition switch. They're not always the easiest to pop apart, but they should just slide backwards to come out once you unclip them. Then you're going to take the new one and reassemble exactly the same way that you took the other one out. And if the piece that holds the wiring to the steering column is damaged or missing, you can use a zip tie right there and it works just as well. And don't go too crazy over tightening this connection. It just needs to be snug. It doesn't need to be torqued down or anything. And the rest of the reassembly is just exactly like you took it apart, only backwards. So the rest of the reassembly is just exactly the opposite as taking it apart. So on the bright side, it was a pretty easy job. Everything went together pretty well. On the downside, my weird symptom that I had is still there. For some reason, when the blower motor is on anything but 0 or 5, which is basically any time that power is run through the blower motor resistor, the engine chugs for a second when you shut it off. This isn't a big deal. I can still drive the car, so it's not nearly as important as like the transmission issues are, but it is still a problem. So if anyone has an idea on that, let me know. I wanted to do this video anyway, even though it was not successful, because that's just how working on cars is. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So let me know what you think about this, and we will just continue moving on with trying to get this car back on the road. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.